Hey there, everyone. This is Eric from Virginia Tech Weiss Schwarz. With the announcement of second season Monogatari today, I figured I might as well show off my Fire Sisters deck for Monogatari, since I don't see it played very often, but it is one of my most successful decks, and it's a lot of fun to play. So let's jump right into it. As far as climaxes, we have 4 of our staple toothbrush, and then 4 of the Tsukihi Gate Trigger. Both of these climax combo with different cards in the set. You'll see as we go on. So starting off with our level 0s, we have 15. So I play 4 of the level 0 Tsukihi, 3k vanilla. You'll see why when I get to the level 1s. Having a lot of Tsukihi characters really helps this deck out a lot. Next we have 4 of the level 0 Tsukihi assist. It gives 500 in front, and then rest to give an additional 500 to any strange character. It's actually surprisingly good for a common to be able to give 1,000 power, and being a Tsukihi character, it's pretty important to this deck. So I run 4 of it. No other real support at level 0, and usually it'll spend most of the game in my back row. Next I have 2, the level 0 Tsukihi Bond. This for 1 cost bonds for the level 1 Toothbrush Karen, which climax combos with the green gold bar trigger. It's pretty handy when it's second turn and say you climax on your first turn. Being able to get that 1 stock out, plus being able to grab one of the toothbrush that you probably discarded at the beginning of the game. It's a solid card to have 2 of. Next, I have 2 of the Mayoi Brainstormer from the original Bakemono. It gets 2k if I have a second blood trait character on the field. And the Brainstorm cost is pay 1, rest 2 characters. For every climax you hit, search deck. Fairly standard, but being able to go up a card is definitely useful. So I have 2 of them in there. I also run 1 of the Hitagi Brainstormer. This one is spammable for 1 cost, and similar effect for every climax you hit, salvage a card and then discard. So it's pretty handy for clearing out stock right before refresh. If you keep hitting a lot of climaxes and have no other way to get it out. Plus it lets you swap from your hand. So say if your climaxes are in your hand, you can grab a character and throw that climax into the waiting room so it can get refreshed. So I run it as a 1 of. I originally had 2 of them in there before I started running the Mayoi Brainstorm, but I definitely like having the 2-to-1 ratio for these Brainstormers. And to finish off the level 0s, we have 2 of this level 0 Mayoi. It's 2k base, and the effect is when I have experience 4, when she's played, I can salvage a card from the waiting room and discard 1. So again, very good for hand fixing. Doesn't do a whole lot until late game, but at the same time, at the beginning of the game, you're just trying to build stock, so you can just throw it out, do some damage, build some stock, and let it die without really caring too much about it. Alright, moving on to level 1s. I run 14 level 1s in this deck. First off, we have 4 of our level 1 Tsukihi Reverser. She's 4,500 base, which for a level 1 Reverser is surprisingly large. But the drawback is, in order for her to be a Reverser, I have to have at least 2 other Yukata trait characters on the field. And, Tsukihi being the only Yukata trait character, that's why it's important to have so many level 0 Tsukihi characters. Because otherwise she's really not all that great. I mean, if you have the assist out, okay, she's 5k, but if you have the Bond Koyomi and you could just cycle through these as your level 1, just keep killing off their level 1s, bond, bring it back, rinse, repeat. It's a pretty solid card. Next, we have 4 of everyone's favorite, Toothbrush Karen. Effect, if I have 2 or more other strange characters on the field, she gets 1k. And then the climax combo, pay 1, she gets 3k until the end of opponent's next turn. So all it really does is get big, but at the same time, it's actually really useful, especially when your opponent can't back up. And you'll see later why that is. But even still, this can get up to 10-5 with the 1k1 climax. So it's a pretty fearsome level 1 as far as power goes. But other than that, it doesn't do a whole lot. But running the bond, it is useful to be able to get cycle them out of waiting room. Plus the gold bar trigger, you can play it pretty frequently. The downside is it is pretty stock intensive, having to pay 1 every time you do it. So if you have 3 in the front row, just be wary of how much you're actually using that effect. Next up, we have 2 of our level 1 Koyomi bond. This bonds for the level 1 reverser. It also bonds for a level 2 Karen that I don't run in this deck, mainly because it has a different climax combo, and other than that, it really doesn't have any useful effects for this deck. So I just use this to, again, cycle through those the level 1 reversers. Next, we have 2 of my favorite card in the deck, Best Girl, Kaikideshu. On play, choose one of your opponent's characters, and that character gets -500. This card is especially nice for decks that like to have really annoying back row characters, because this can target any character on the field. So if they have an assist, let's say an anti-salvage or something like that, that's 500 power, play one of these, give that the -500, and it goes automatically to the waiting room. So they either have to hand encore it or stock encore it, whatever, and it's a real pain for a lot of decks. The second effect is also really good. When I rest Kaiki, again, I can choose one of the opponent's characters, and during battle involving that character, they are not allowed to play events or backups from their hand. So, like I said before, this works really well with Toothbrush, and even the level 1 reverser, being as big as it is, I can get over most level 1s without actually killing the level 1 reverser. And without them being able to back up, this prevents things like Little Buster's money counter or the new Two Love Rue 3/3 Darkness Plan counter. So this is a pretty fun level 1 card. And then finally, to top off our level 1, we have 2 of the Hanekawa backup from the original Bakemono. It gives 1500 power, but the main reason I run this in the deck is because of the first effect, which is when I back up a character, I can pay 2 and then give one of the characters in battle -1 soul. And that is really handy in certain endgame situations where they could be shooting for game with exact damage. You throw this down, pay that stock, and suddenly it's not a game-ending situation anymore. This has definitely gotten me out of some sticky situations. Alright, moving into level 2. Like with most decks nowadays, level 2 is fairly small, running only 4 cards. Here's the first 2. The level 2, Tsukihi. She's 7k base, and if I have experience 5, she's a level 2 reverser. So, as you can tell, I enjoy having reversers for every level of the game. Obviously, I could be running the level 0 Mayoi reverser, but when you weigh the risks and the costs of not getting that level 1 reverser off with the Tsukihis, it's definitely more useful to have 4 of that 3k vanilla and 4 of the 3k the 500 assist. The second effect of this, climax combos with the gate trigger, and basically when it attacks, I can pay 1 and send any level 2 or lower card in the front row to the waiting room. I love that effect a lot. I don't get to play it a whole lot, mainly because level 2 mostly just doesn't happen. But I mean, that's kind of just a result of the game. But when it does, it's really nice because then you can have smaller characters, just swinging for direct damage. So there's very little drawback to this card, besides it being 7k. If the opponent's already at level 3, there's not a whole lot it can do. But it's a pretty solid level 2. And then the other 2 cards are level 2 Karen Changers, 7500 base. If this card is rested at the beginning of Encore Step, so it's an Encore Step changer, pay 2, send this to the waiting room, and change into the level 3 Karen. This, I've been going back and forth whether or not I actually want to run this changer, but it actually has proven to be pretty useful if I can get it off early enough in the level 2 game. And having the Kaiki to prevent backups or anything like that, to protect this character, you can kill some powerful characters at level 2 and still be able to get the change effect off. So it's definitely a nice to have. Again, I wouldn't recommend running more than 2 of it. Alright, moving on to the finale, our level 3s. I run 9 of them in this deck. It used to be a bit more, but I've found that this is a pretty solid number to be able to get all of the experience effects off and still have a pretty solid end game. So starting off, we have that level 3 Karen that comes in from the level 2 changer. This is actually, in my opinion, one of the most underrated level 3s I've seen in Weiss Schwarz. If I have 2 or more other strange characters, it gets 1k, so essentially 11k base. And then at the beginning of opponent's attack phase, I can discard a card from hand, swap it with any character in my front row, and then stand this character and she gets 2k. So that's basically 13k base plus, okay, I have to discard a card, but let's say I'm about to refresh and I have a climax in my hand. Well, this is a perfect way to get that climax out of there, be able to refresh, cancel damage better, plus give this this power buff. Not only that, but being able to swap characters in the front row like that really throws a lot of cards off. A lot of different sets kind of rely on being able to reverse their opponent, and if they're unable to do that because of this card, it's a lot better for me in the end. So again, I really think this card is underrated, but I still wouldn't recommend playing more than 2 of it. I could see maybe running 3, but it really doesn't help to have more than 2 of it on the field at the same time, just because that affects discarding a card. Next, we have 2 of the level 3 Tsukihi. This is a pretty interesting card. So it's a level 3 cost 3, and she's a 10k base power. The effect is when she gets reversed, rest her. That's it. So honestly, the deck could probably do without this, but since it is Tsukihi, and I do love this card a lot, I mostly just play it for sentimental value and also to get experience effects off. But even still, look how nice that sign card looks. I love it. I love it so much. So not an essential card, but it's still fun to play. Next, we have 3 of the level 3 Kambaru from the original Bakemono. 9500 base. If I have 5 experience, she gets 1k and hand encore, and she heals on play. Overall, this is just a pretty solid card in general. I've never encountered a game where I haven't had more than 5 experience, so that the hand encore is pretty consistent. And originally, when I built this deck, I only had Karen and Tsukihi, so I was really lacking a healer. So picking these up was, a good decision, even though it is kind of breaking up the whole Fire Sisters thing. But it's definitely nice to have a healer at level 3, and especially having Hand on Core helps it out a lot. And finally, last 2 cards, the original level 3 Hitagi from Bakemono. Level 6 experience. She gets 500, and the effect when battle opponent becomes reversed, I can pay 1 and send any level 2 or lower card to the waiting room. So it's a pretty decent effect. I actually think this one's a bit overrated. And her second effect is heal on play. It is definitely nice to be able to get that effect off. Pay the 1 and be able to kill, I don't know, an anti-salvage or something in the back row that may be giving Hand on Core, things like that. But I really don't see that first effect being used a whole lot. I mostly just run it for the healing effect. So that's it. Monogatari Fire Sisters deck. Go figure, ending with the not Fire Sisters, but this deck originally started off as kind of just I want to put together some kind of budget deck for WGP, regional qualifiers, and I was playing English Bakemono at the time. It was like, oh, Nisemono has so many cool cards, I can make a pretty good Fire Sisters deck. And this is a pretty significant change from what the deck was back then. I wasn't running these Brainstormers, I wasn't running the level 1 Bond, I didn't have any of the level 3s from the original set. And I ended up going 1 and 2 back then, but that was over a year ago now. Since then, I've been pretty active in Skype Weiss recently. In the past 3 tournaments with this deck, I've placed 4th, 4th, and 1st. So I'm pretty glad overall with how it performs. It definitely has a lot of good hand fixing options. A lot of good ways to clean out dirty stock. A pretty abusive level 1. Between the reversers and the size of the toothbrush combo, it's arguably one of the more powerful level 1 games. It does lack a lot of utility. All it really has is Bond characters, Brainstormers, and the Mayoi at level 4, at experience 4. So you do kind of have to rely on good draws, but at the same time, because I run a pretty small variety of cards in this deck, you're almost always going to be able to draw into whatever you need. And I've found it to be pretty consistent. Sometimes you just kind of get screwed over by climaxes, but that's really the nature of the game. As far as the new Monogatari set goes, it's supposed to come out January 22nd of 2016. I am very excited for it, although I don't see it working well with this deck, mainly because second season really didn't have a whole lot of interaction with the Fire Sisters, which makes me a little sad. Maybe we'll see a few commons or uncommons with Tsukihi and Karen, but I have a feeling it's mostly going to be Hitagi, Shinobu. Maybe we'll see some more blue Hanekawa. That would be exciting. I know back in the day I used to play Lovers, and that level 3 Hanekawa is kind of gimmicky, but it was fun to play nonetheless. So that's the deck. I hope you enjoyed watching. This is a really fun deck to play if you're looking for a pretty low cost, low budget, fun to play deck. These Hitagis in English may run you like $30 a piece. In Japanese, I think I got them for like $12 each. So I definitely recommend running Monogatari in Japanese, especially with the new set coming out. I'll probably be buying half a carton of that. So look forward to more Monogatari deck profiles from me in the future. I hope you enjoyed the video, and Take care.